The Sports Renegades podcast on SportsTownChicago.com. Welcome back to the Sports Renegades here on SportsTownChicago.com. I'm Ryan Stuprich.
And I'm Ryan Risky.
In our first segment, we talked just sort of about the Cavaliers and the Warriors' awesome Game 7, and we talked about that for the first segment as the Cavaliers win it in Oakland, and they win, I think they won by 5 was the final score.
93-89.
Yeah, 93-80. I could have just scrolled up and looked at that. 93-89, and Game 7, and Cleveland finally has their championship, which is great.
Yeah, the first team in Cleveland since the Browns 52 years ago, and I believe 1964.
Yeah, the 1964 season for the Browns, they ended up winning. I guess I heard on the radio earlier today, the Browns were they were definitely underdogs in that game, and they ended up winning. So that was the last championship that Cleveland's ever seen.
And the thing about that, that is that, you know, if it was going to be the Cavs, or the Cleveland was going to go a long time without winning anything, because the Indians are still way too many pieces away from winning. They have some good talent. They have a good coaching staff with Terry Francona as the manager.
Yep.
Except they're just missing too many pieces. They have a good pitching staff. They just don't have enough arms in the bullpen, and they don't have enough quality position players. They need Michael Brantley to get healthy, and then another middle-of-the-order bat. And they don't have a hockey team. So really, it was up to the Cavs, and their time with LeBron was running out. I mean, yes, he's 31 or 32, except, that doesn't count all the heavy minutes he's played every season and all the long playoff runs his teams have made, because he's played an absurd amount of basketball because his teams are always going deep. I think because he went to the finals all 4 years in Miami. This is 6 straight years he's been to the NBA Finals, and it's just kind of like with the Blackhawks. Playing that many minutes is going to end up catching up to you at some point, so it's good for Cleveland that they finally got it this season. Yeah,
and of course, as we'll talk about a little later in the next segment, they might be running the Eastern Conference for a while, because we know the Bulls aren't going to be there anytime soon. But yeah, going back to Golden State, they ended the regular season 73-9, which is one win better than the 95-96 Bulls. And, I think Golden State got a little cocky after that. And I say that because, a lot of people, especially a lot of fans and a lot of bandwagon fans, if you want to call it that, and even people here in the Chicago area were saying that this team was better than the 95-96 Bulls. And, I always have not agreed with that, throughout all the playoffs and stuff. I'm like, well, yeah, so they're one win better, which is great, but I think, if they played head-to-head, the Bulls would win, just because they had Michael Jordan, they had a lot of big men who were a lot better than these Golden State Warriors big men, except for Draymond Green.
Yeah, I mean, also, if you look, the amount of times they've taken, open threes, the 95-96 Bulls would have played such hard defense. It would have been tough for Golden State to get shots off. They had the size. Mm-hmm. And I think if they played head-to-head, it would end up being the 95-96 Bulls, except now that Golden State lost Game 7, I don't think 73-9 means as much.
No, it certainly doesn't mean anything. And, of course, there's that saying, it don't mean a thing without the ring. And, it certainly doesn't mean anything to me that Golden State is 73-9. As far as I'm concerned, the Bulls are still on top in that respect because they actually won the championship that year. Plus, that was the first full season that Michael Jordan was back with the Bulls, and he won it on Father's Day, and he had just lost his dad, a couple years before that. So there was a lot of things that played into it, but Golden State, they couldn't get it done, and they played 2 7-game series. The Bulls only lost 3 games throughout that whole playoffs.
Yeah, it's just kind of one of those things. Even if they had beaten Cleveland in Game 7 or they had won the NBA Finals in Game 5 or 6, I still think the 95-96 Bulls would. I just think that team would have beaten them if they played a 7-game series. Except right now, they didn't. It doesn't matter. They didn't win the title.
Yeah.
And you could see the frustration on the Golden State players.
Yeah, there was certainly a lot of frustration, especially from Steve Kerr. I think he was pretty confident that they were going to win. And, Steve Kerr's always been confident ever since he was with the Bulls. He won 3 rings with the Bulls. I believe he won the following year with the Spurs in '99. I'm not sure if he was on the team then. I know Dennis Rodman was. But, there was just... there was a lot of championship talk going into that, and the Warriors certainly let their fans down by losing 3 straight games to end the finals.
Right, and especially on this historic season. And as I said earlier, I just think the amount of shots that Curry and Thompson had attempted throughout the entire season, throughout the playoffs, their arms were just getting tired. Because you could tell, they were missing shots that they normally make.
Yes, that's for sure, and that's especially at the end.
That's throughout the entire playoffs, too. Curry and Thompson were not playing like Curry and Thompson.
No, and I think that goes back to what you said, that they were definitely tired from the 7-game series. I mean, obviously it played a factor. Oklahoma City probably has to feel okay about themselves, just knowing that they really wore down Golden State. And a Western Conference team ended up not winning the championship, which is and that doesn't happen too often. I mean, especially in the last 15 years since 2000. I mean, it's always been the Western Conference has been winning. So, it was nice to see an Eastern Conference team win, and it was nice to see that it was Cleveland.
Right, and speaking really, the last Eastern Conference team without LeBron on it to win was probably the Celtics.
Yes, yeah. That would definitely be the Celtics because, besides the Celtics, there's Lakers. The Lakers went through their whole run with their three-peat in 2000, 2001, 2002, and then they won again in 2009 and 2010. It was just, it's always been Western Conference heavy in our lifetimes pretty much.
Right, and going back to Curry and him not showing up, in games 1, 2, and 3 of this series, he had... respectively, he had 11 points, 18, and then 19. Now, Golden State won 2 of those 3 games, except that's not MVP numbers.
No, not at all, which is why I would be shocked if he was the MVP again this year. But he might be.
Right. He was the first unanimous MVP.
Yeah, he was the first unanimous, and I was going to say, if Golden State won it, I'm not even sure if he would be Finals MVP.
I probably would have. I think it might have been Draymond Green. I thought he was their best player throughout the whole playoff run. I know that's just the Finals MVP, which is unfortunate. I like how the NHL does it for the entire playoffs.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
And then in Game 4, Curry went off for 38 points. Game 5, he had 25. Game 6, he had 30. Then Game 7, he only had 17.
So that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, except, then, you have to look more into it on his stats for those games. Shooting threes, the game he had 38, he was 7 of 13 for threes. That's Steph Curry numbers right there. Except then after that, he was 5 of 14 in his 25-point performance in Game 5 without Draymond Green. And then in Game 6, when he had 30 points, for the game he was 8 of 20 shooting. He went 6 of 13 from 3 in that game. And he joins Kareem Abdul-Jabbar as the only league MVPs to lose a Game 7 in the NBA Finals.
We're just wrapping up our discussion about the Golden State Warriors and the Cleveland Cavaliers as the finals ended yesterday, and Ryan Risky was talking about some stats about Curry and how he really wasn't MVP-like in this finals.
Not even in the whole playoffs. He was not playing as well, and you saw him taking a lot of bad shots, and a lot of dumb shots. They looked kind of like shots that Nikola Mirotic would be taking.
Right, threes from half court, it seems, not even coming close. And normally Steph Curry is pretty good at those long range threes, not from half court, obviously.
And when Golden State missed that 3 at the end, when they were trying to hit a 3 and then foul quickly, they made it so obvious they were going to shoot a 3. They made it way too obvious. I was just thinking, Cleveland's preparing for a 3.
Yeah.
Why not try to drive and get a 2, and then if Cleveland makes both of their free throws after you foul them, then it's only a 3-point game. And then you have time to set up a 3 where you're just trying to throw up a prayer right there just to try to extend the game. And they made it so obvious. I was just kind of thinking maybe they should try in 2 and then potentially only be down 3. And then if whoever was shooting the free throws after they fouled had missed one, then it's a 2-point game.
I just think that the Golden State after Kyrie hit the 3 and then after they missed that next shot and then LeBron went to the free throw line, I just think they were kind of out of sorts because if you remember, before they fouled, they were sort of chasing out, trying to play the shot clock, hoping that they would miss, but then they ended up fouling anyway, which I thought was kind of a dumb move when you think about it because there was maybe a 4 or 5 second difference between the game clock and shot clock.
That was after the foul to give. I think there was a 4.5 second
after the foul
difference.
to give, and I don't remember who fouled LeBron James on that dunk attempt, but
I think it was Green.
But I think they should have just played it out and not foul. Of course he did go up for that dunk, and you want to try to prevent him from making that. But I just thought before that I thought they should have done some quick fouling, and they didn't. They played the game clock down a lot.
Yeah, they did. It wasn't the best clock management, and that caps off the season that wasn't, the historic season that ended without a ring for Golden State.
The Bulls are still the champs. Woo! Okay, we're going to take a break. We'll come back and talk about those Bulls, and me and Ryan Risky think we'll be maybe about 85 years old before they win a title again. So we'll see how that goes. We'll talk about the Bulls and what they need to do to try to get back into the playoffs at least, because that's step number 1. You're listening to the Sports Renegades on SportsTownChicago.com. The Sports Renegades podcast on SportsTownChicago.com.